Hello. I want to quickly say thanks to everybody who watched the first video on the channel. You left some really nice comments, and one mean one, but it was great to see people tap in, and it made me want to keep making the UFC videos you might like to see. Today, we're going over UFC Qatar, Tsarukyan versus Dan Hooker, and giving predictions from bottom to top. To make it fun, I'm also going to start the inaugural Felix win counter to track how accurately we call fights, and it'll continue over to every predictions video in the future. First up, opening the card is Marek Bujlo versus Denzel Freeman. I've learned what I can about these two. Bujlo is an interesting Polish fighter, a regional black belt who's 6-0, all by finish. The fights of his I could watch are from Polish promotions, where he comes out with a very clear game plan and he sticks to it well. His last 3 wins have all been by ground and pound. Essentially, he hugs the op until they fall over, and then gets mount and finishes the job. 6-0 is a great record, but they've been very low-level guys, so we'll see. His opponent is also newly signed, Denzel Freeman. The biggest promotion Denzel's fought in is LFA, managing to get a title shot in their heavyweight division. Denzel, he's an interesting guy too. He throws a lot of hard punches, he can kick high and hard, which is unusual for a heavyweight. It looks like he has some level of grappling, 1 submission on his record, but it doesn't seem to be a go-to tool. My prediction. Bujlo's grappling is better, and that's a plausible way for him to win this. But I think he's going to stay standing with Freeman, and from what footage I can see, Freeman's a better puncher. Look, Freeman's fought in better organisations, he's more experienced, he can throw kicks, which is something I haven't seen Bujlo do. I'm going to predict Denzel Freeman by TKO in the first round. The next fight is Nurullo Aliev versus Shem. Aliev's a pretty new face to me, honestly. He won a contract by TKO on the Contender Series, and he's won 2 decisions since. I mean, it's a pretty good start. He's 10-0, he's from a wrestling background. The only thing is he has 0 wins by sub, and only 1 TKO, and that's for a wrestler. And that TKO is the ground and pound from the Contender Series. So I mean, if he's going to do anything besides go to a decision against Shem here, it's either a submission, which he's never done before, or it'll have to be ground and pound because he's never knocked anyone out doing anything else. So I suppose we'll see. I like the look of Shem. He's a submission specialist who's been big in Octagon for a few years. The way he's talking, he sounds very ready for this opportunity, but I mean, everyone says they're ready for the UFC, and the recent big names brought over from other promotions like Patchy and Pitbull, I mean, they've been pretty lackluster. He can verifiably handle himself if it goes to the mat, which, if he wants, he can make this fight take place on the mat. But the bookies have Aliev as a -300 favourite. They don't pull their odds out of nowhere. If he ends up losing, I feel they'll definitely give Rock a second shot in the UFC. But what if he doesn't lose? My prediction, Shem by rear naked choke, round 3. Next up is Ismail Naurdiev versus Ryan Loder. Naurdiev's been in the UFC twice. His first stint was from 2019 to 2020, and then he re-signed in 2024 and is 1-1 since. For a 29-year-old, he's had 32 pro fights, and in full he's gone 3-3 in the UFC, all decisions. So essentially that's the level of guy you can expect here. He's pretty hybrid, not too striker, not too grappler. Essentially, 6 fights, all decisions is basically what you need to know. Ryan Loder is 1-1 in the UFC, with a TKO over Robert Valentin and a TKO loss to Azamat. Losing to Bekzat's not bad. Bekzat was a real monster for a second there. So I'll be interested to see if Loder still comes out swinging, now having been knocked out. Although he only fights once or twice a year, Naurdiev hasn't been knocked out since 2022. Maybe those 32 fights of experience will make it a lot harder for Loder to do things his way. My prediction, it's going to a decision, and I think it could swing either way, so I'll say Ryan Loder by split decision. The next fight is Bekzat Almaktan and Alexandre Topuria. I do want to talk about Bekzat before the slightly more interesting guy in Topuria. Almaktan's a good fighter in his own right. He hasn't lost in 4 years except to Umar Nurmagomedov. 10 of his 12 wins have come by KO or TKO, so he's a great finisher. The thing I want to talk about with Bekzat is, if I'm reading this stat correctly, he's got an essentially 0% successful takedown ratio. What that means is this guy doesn't have any option besides keeping it standing, and for the matchup he's got, that's really not the situation you want to be in. But I mean, that said, count this guy out at your own risk. I like him. Alexandre Topuria, of sibling fame, is 1-0 in the UFC with a unanimous decision. The short on him is he's a highly skilled boxer. He can close distance, he applies pressure well. He's got a wrestling base, but largely speaking, he prefers to strike. He's super well rounded, and being attached to Ilya is a great way to make yourself into a really sharp fighter. The projections have it basically even between these two. Topuria has a lot of hype, but that's not to say he won't be up to scratch. And Almaktan is yet to lose against anyone that doesn't go on to do big things. It shapes up to be a really good fight in my opinion. My prediction is Alexandre by split decision. The next fight? Abdulrakhman Yakhyaev and Raffael Cerqueira. Yakhyaev in the UFC through the Contender Series. This guy could be one to look at. 7-0, 3 by TKO and 3 by submission. It's a pretty good start to life. When I was watching his footage, what stood out to me is the way he moves forward in a fight is really smart. The way I can explain it is, he's watching for the opponent's strikes before he even lifts his hand to strike back. And it leads to him being like extremely good on the counter. He moves forward very smartly, and then he's inside the opponent's space and can take him out. He got his Contender Series win in 30 seconds, his opponent turtled up. Listen, it's early days with Yakhyaev, but he looks pretty good. He's also a massive favourite to win this fight. Raffael Cerqueira doesn't have a win in the UFC. He's lost to Ibo Aslan, who at one point had promise, Modestas Bukauskas, who's alright, and Julius Walker. He's an average light heavyweight and he's losing to medium to bad guys. It just looks like 0-4 is coming up for Cerqueira. He's not a great striker, and I just spoke about how Yakhyaev gets in the space of average strikers really well. I mean, can Cerqueira stuff takedowns? Probably not. The question just becomes, what does Cerqueira beating Yakhyaev look like? I don't know. My prediction, Yakhyaev inside the distance, I'll say submission. Next up is Nicolas Dalby versus Saygid Izagakhmaev. The last fight I watched of Dalby's was the Randy Brown one, so that's largely what I'm going to assess him on here. Dalby was swinging really hard for Randy, and if he connected, Brown would probably have been in a world of trouble. But he wasn't connecting. Brown was able to keep the distance, hit Dalby on the counter, and by the second round it was over, Dalby was out. The problem with Dalby is, he doesn't protect himself at all times. He has really good power, but if you're 40 and you don't keep your hands up, I don't know what to tell you. On the other hand, striking isn't what Saygid Izagakhmaev does. Saygid is from Khabib's gym, and his fight style is standard edition Dagestani stuff. If he can submit you, he will, but he won't risk a lot to get in that position. He's got 22 wins, 13 submissions. The interesting thing is, he's got this gap in his record. He went from fighting in one championship in 2022, and then only recently returned at a Karate Combat in 2025. It just seems to have been like a voluntary break in his career. Now listen, being from Khabib's gym, it's not the automatic pass that a lot of people think it is. But Saygid has been set up pretty nicely here. My prediction, between the two skill sets in this matchup, it should be pretty easy. Izagakhmaev by submission in the second round. The next fight we have is Bogdan Grad versus Luke Riley. Bogdan Grad is reasonably capable. He's not great at any one thing, but he's got good instincts of when to punch and when to chase a submission. He's 1-1 in the UFC, he's earned a Performance of the Night bonus so far. He lost to Naimov, but Naimov does beat guys that are the better side of average. In short, Bogdan Grad's okay. It kinda takes the fight to start to see how he's going to perform. Luke Riley is a fighter coming from Cage Warriors. We've seen Cage Warriors guys turn into greats in the UFC, like Conor and Bisping and Paddy. If you look up the list, you'll actually be surprised how many greats Cage Warriors has produced. Riley's 11-0 so far, first fight in the UFC, and I want to give him a good bit of credit. Just because Grad's name is somewhat known to fans, and he's fought at this level before, isn't really a reason to assume he's the favourite for this fight. It took Grad 2 goes to get past the Contender Series, so it's not really prospect versus prospect here. Since Riley's gone pro, all his wins have been knockouts except 3 decisions, all of which were unanimous in his favour. Look, he's new enough, but Luke Riley could really turn into somebody. My prediction, Luke Riley by unanimous decision. And closing the prelims, Alex Perez versus Asu Almabayev. Perez has been match made against all of the current big names in flyweight, and they've either fallen through or he's lost the fight. He had a title shot against Figueiredo back in the day, and he was submitted first round. He's had bouts cancelled against Urseg, Moreno, Kaikara, Cap. He's lost Pantoja, Yakhyaev, Tyra. Listen, some years ago, the guy was fine. But the guy's fought 4 times since his title shot, and that was a title shot in 2020. And how many wins does he have? 1. The one win came against Matheus Nicolau, a guy who, maybe unfairly, was cut from the UFC. But listen, I don't have too much to say. I know Perez has been around for years, and he's a capable guy. But the fight is this Saturday, you can't rest on your laurels. I like Asu Almabayev. He's not one of my top guys, but I like to see his name on a card. He's 5-1, was on a 4-fight streak before main eventing in the Apex. He got TKO'd by Cap recently, but Cap was fighting really dirty, I think with 2 eye pokes in the fight. Broadly speaking, I think he's hanging around the top 10 of the flyweight division. Like, I know he's ranked number 8, but I think some of the lower guys like Temirov or Ulanbekov, they're probably better fighters than he is. Overall, he's a good grappler. His punches don't hit very hard, but they're more used to set up the grapples he wants. But I mean, Perez has been in the game an awfully long time, so if you're going to submit him, you'd really want to bring your A game. My prediction, Asu Almabayev by split decision. And now, opening the main card, Tagir Ulanbekov versus Kyoji Horiguchi. Tagir is a second guy who trains at Khabib's gym. I saw him fight Clayton Carpenter at the Los Angeles card for Makhachev Moicano, and it was a pretty lukewarm decision to get things started. He's a grappling first guy. If he sees a sub, he'll go for it. But otherwise, you're looking at just a control fighter. As well as that, he doesn't see the sub very often, so expect to see all 15 minutes of his fights. A lot of people don't know who Horiguchi is. Horiguchi has headlined a UFC event before. He headlined and fought for the belt at UFC 186 against Mighty Mouse all the way back in 2015. Mighty Mouse beat him by an armbar, and then when his contract was up he decided not to re-sign and go to Ryzen, saying they would pay him more money. He was 24 when he fought DJ, and now he's 35. He's been a champ in Ryzen and Bellator since leaving, but his last UFC appearance was 9 years ago. I think it's going to be interesting to see how he does. My prediction, I think the game has moved on. Tagir Ulanbekov by unanimous decision. Next, Sergey Spivak and Shamil Gaziev. This fight has been rescheduled twice, and we're finally getting it. Sergey Spivak is a slightly better than middling heavyweight. Big wins over Lewis and Tybura in the rematch, but generally he loses to any realistic title contender. I really liked what he did in his main event against Tybura. He got where he wanted to be very fast, and he got there by dodging punches smartly until he saw the takedown chance. I'd like to see him bounce back in this spot. I'm a fan of his. Shamil Gaziev is sort of a cult hero, so I'm going to try to toe the line between banter and actually analysing how he fights. He likes to throw kicks, and he throws them pretty well for a big boy, generally landing in the midsection. What I notice watching Gaziev footage is he doesn't defend the takedown well, but he is pretty good at getting back to his feet. Gaziev hasn't beaten anyone good. You're looking at Thomas Peterson being his best win, and when he did fight someone good in Rosenstrike battered him. I know he's the funny guy, but lads, be serious. My prediction, Sergey Spivak gets the submission in the second round. The next fight is Jack Hermansson versus Miktubek Oralbai. Hermansson's a good vet who lands loads of significant strikes. You could call him a win-loss guy, but he gets matched against guys looking to break into the rankings. His most recent good win was over Joe Pyfer in an Apex main event, but his last outing was a TKO loss to Robocop. He's coming up on 10 years in the company, and he wouldn't have stuck around this long if he didn't know what he was doing. Largely speaking, Hermansson can still perform. Here's an important factor to know though. For this one, Jack is going down a division at 37 years old to fight a finisher 10 years younger than him. Hermansson's got a lot of skill and good wins, even good recent wins. But don't forget that this is a pretty big ask. Miktubek Oralbai is a rising welterweight, yet to fight anyone of real name value so far. His only UFC loss was in a fight of the night against Mateusz Rebecki, who's earned fight of the night in his last 3. So this one shapes up to be a pretty fair matchup against someone of Jack's pedigree and age. Oralbai's a really resilient fighter who can take a lot of damage, which is a good match for someone like Hermansson's style. so I'm not too worried about him getting KO'd. He's pretty well rounded. I don't think he's going to light the division on fire, but I think he can fight a good fight. My prediction, because of how well he can take damage and keep punching, I'm going to predict Uralbai by unanimous decision. Last one before the co-mains, Volkan Ozdemir versus Alonzo Menefield. I'm going to save you 2 minutes. Volkan Ozdemir is going to punch the head off Alonzo Menefield. Ozdemir is a pretty dangerous guy who fights about twice a year. He's a pretty classic light heavyweight, a power puncher type of guy. His losses generally come against big names, and that happens whenever he makes mistakes during the fight and gets caught. If he wins, it's likely a knockout, and if he loses, it probably goes to a decision. So if he can get in there and get it over and done with, there'll be no problem. Menefield is the 14th ranked light heavyweight. If he's ranked number 14, I should be ranked number 16. He won against Umar Sy most recently, and that I will give him credit for, even if the fight was pretty slow paced. But it's the fight before that I'm giving him all the stick about. Julius Walker, a regional scene guy with a background in basketball, came in to fight him on 10 days notice, and no sooner did the fight begin than they were both gassed out with their hands down by their sides. I just don't see it, man. You can't dodge a split decision against a basketball player and expect to beat a guy in the top 10. My prediction, Volkan Ozdemir by second round knockout. The co-main event of UFC Qatar, Belal Muhammad and Ian Machado Gary. Belal beat Leon for the title in such a way that it was like, wow, Belal's going to be the champion for a while. Then obviously JDM comes in, he crashes that. But even if you don't like his style, you can't forget how the pressure wrestling just went unanswered in his title challenge. He can strike, but that's not what you plan for against Belal. It's his relentless pressure and how ugly it is to fight Belal Muhammad. I get it if you don't think that makes for a go watch. You're right. But he's only got one loss since 2019, and that was losing his belt. Belal is a good fighter. In my book, Ian Gary's best trait is his fight IQ. Yes, he is a point fighter, but he's super polished, he fights very smartly now he's arrived at the top levels of the division. He beats top guys. His performance against Shavkat was great, even if people don't like the way he talks about it. I think Gary's plan here has to be all about man management. He managed Carlos Prates really well in their main event, and that's a win that's aging beautifully. But when he was nearly knocked out and he was scrambling on the floor in the 5th, that's because his game plan fell and he let Prates get close with those touch of death fists. I think Gary keeps the distance, you try to outstrike him, outpoint Belal cleanly, and then you're in with a shot. My prediction, it's going to a decision, and I think it's going to be Belal Muhammad's. And lastly, for the main event of UFC Qatar 2025, for the chance to fight Ilia Topuria, Arman Tsarukyan versus Dan Hooker. Arman Tsarukyan has been in the UFC doghouse for a long time. Pulling out of your title fight the day before does not endear you to the boss. But put that to the side and you're looking at almost definitely the second best guy in the lightweight division. Arman's wrestling is pretty elite, his grappling is pretty elite, his striking is pretty elite. Tsarukyan is the real deal. I think his fight style is going to be very influenced by the position he finds himself in. I think he's going to hold Hooker against the cage and wait for his opportunity rather than engage in a firefight that would make for a much better watch. The reason I say that is I think the title shot that was taken away from him is the only thing on his mind. Dan Hooker is a pretty beloved guy in the UFC, and his ability is a lot better than a 14-8 record might suggest. But that's the other thing. Since he's beloved, a lot of fans aren't being realistic about his ability and his chances here. Here's how I view Dan Hooker's strengths. He's got great variety in how he can attack, knees, elbows, strikes. He's got a great willingness to engage, and he's got like a real intangible scrapper head. What Hooker's big shortcoming is, beloved though he may be, is that he has not beaten top guys. My final prediction for UFC Qatar 2025, Arman Tsarukyan by submission in the 3rd. Thanks so much for watching to the end. If you liked the video, it'd mean a lot if you dropped a comment. It was great talking to the guys on the last one. If you have a video you want me to do next, let me know it as well and I'll see what I can do. Anyway, Thank you guys for watching, subscribe to see the next one, and all the best.